Today's day 29 of the Karen Reed trial. I'm going to give you my daily recap. Today is a really big day because after 28-ish and a half days plus jury selection and all the motions and everything, the prosecution has finally rested their case. So I'm going to get into all of that for you. We left off yesterday with Dr. Irini Scorti-Bello, I keep doing this with her name, on the stand, and she is the medical examiner for the Commonwealth. So if I was the prosecutor, I probably would have put her early in the testimony, but I do understand why Adam Lally has her at the end because he was anticipating that her findings would match up completely with a car accident. And don't get me wrong, he knows her findings, he knows what she's gonna say, but there were a few bombshells that she gave today that didn't go to plan. The prosecutor is still doing his questioning with Dr. Scorti-Bello, and he asks her if this is like common injuries that she sees with car accidents, and she says this is not the classic car collision with pedestrian accident injuries that we observe. That didn't go to plan for him. That was a big moment because I think he was assuming that she was going to give a statement that would hammer it in that, yes, this looked like a car accident. So as you can imagine, for me, and I'm assuming for the jurors, this was a major wow moment, and I did go back and rewind and listen to it a few times, so that's exactly what she said. We have Liza Little on the stand doing her cross-examination, and I learned a little bit that she is maybe just like a little bit newer and less seasoned to Alan Jackson's team, and with the medical examiner, usually their findings are pretty straightforward. It's either this or that. So you can expect what they're going to answer a little bit. And so that's why she's doing the cross on this. I didn't really like the fact that she did. I thought for the prosecution's last witness, it would be really nice if Yannetti or Alan Jackson did, just to nail in these final points. And they did know that she was most likely the final witness. Something that we learned from Liza Little was that John O'Keefe had a laceration on his tongue, and that was the first time that was mentioned. That is significant when there is trauma during an altercation, which we didn't know. So today I also watched Emily D. Baker's recap. Yesterday and today was the only times I've ever watched hers. I always watch Law and Crime Network, but I do like that she fast forwards through all of the sidebars, lunch break, and things like that, and she provides a little bit of insight on the side. A lot of insight is what my mom would say. She kind of talks over what's happening sometimes. But we saw this picture with the evidence that was admitted, and we learned that the bruising on the back of the hands could be consistent with an IV that was entered here. That's kind of what it looks like to me, but it also could be defensive wounds. He didn't have any broken bones or fractures in his hands though. We also learned though that once he got to Good Samaritan Hospital, he actually got warming IV fluids through a vein in his leg and then through a catheter. In all of the damning text messages from Trooper Proctor, he says that she's a whack job, referring to this medical examiner. He was trying to convince her to not label this as undetermined. He wanted the cause of death, the manner of death to be homicide because that would give more play for his case. So with it being undetermined, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what it could be. Trooper Proctor provided the medical examiner with additional photos of a few areas of the front lawn of 34 Fairview, which to me really speaks to the fact that, yes, this was undetermined, because if the defense is saying that he died inside the home in this altercation, the photos of the lawn aren't really going to help the scene. It didn't help match anything for her, but he provided pictures of the front of the house with the fire hydrant area and the flagpole. I wonder if she would have saw pictures of the inside of the house, of the basement floor, and if that would have changed any of her findings. Or that doorknob that we have heard about a little bit off the record. Supposedly the feds have DNA or blood from a doorknob inside the Albert home that is linked to John O'Keefe. So I'm wondering if she would have seen that, and that doorknob could have matched up to the laceration on the back of the head, or same thing with the flooring. So at this time, the state rests their case, and in most cases, this is the point where the defense will file a motion in order to say, just like, the state has not done their burden of proving at this point, so we would like you to dismiss this case. It almost never happens, so we were expecting that she would deny the motion, and she did. But Alan Jackson did make some great points in that speech that he did. It was done without the jury present, though. The first witness that the defense calls is the snowplow driver, Lucky Brian Laughlin, I believe is his name. And we've heard about him a little bit. He's from Canton. He grew up in Canton. He is the same age as Chris Albert. He knows the Albert family pretty well. He knows a lot of the siblings. I think he named almost all of them. And he's been a plow driver for a few years. He's been driving the same plow for over 2 years. So this is Lucky, the snowplow driver, and he gives really important testimony for the defense. The first thing that he says is that he started his shift just after midnight, and he drives by 34 Fairview for the first time around 2:30 a.m. When he drives by the home, he doesn't see any body or anything on the front lawn, and the snow was really just starting to accumulate inch by inch there. He drove by again around 3:15-ish, and at that point he says there is a Ford Edge parked in front of the home directly in front of the flagpole area. He said that typically their protocol is that he should report this, and he didn't do this because he was being courteous to the Albert family, but when there's a big snowstorm like this, they're not supposed to park on the street, so it would have been towed or they would have been asked to move the car. But he didn't do this as a courtesy to them. The final time that he drives by is around 6 a.m. and he's unable to get down Fairview Road because of the first responders and all of the attention that's there. Adam Lally really tries to discredit Lucky, but he has remained very consistent with his story. And I think that proves that he's telling the truth. Lally was trying to mix him up a bunch. And he's staying firm to what he has already done and said in the grand jury testimony and in his original interview. The next witness is Dr. Marie Russell. We met her the other day when she testified for the judge without the jury present. She is here to testify about the dog bite marks. I'm not going to go over her expertise because we heard this the other day, but she is highly qualified and there is no doubt about that. She states that she has published articles about dog bites going back to 1996 and continued to do publications as well. She has seen up to 1,000 patients with dog bite injuries. Her opinion is that these injuries on John O'Keefe's forearm area were sustained by an animal, specifically a dog. She explains her thought process and how the patterns are and linear abrasions and where it looks like claw marks or teeth marks. So Lally is obviously, the only thing he can do is try to discredit her, and he wants to know how she heard about this case. We know that she heard about it through the Boston Globe, and she reached out to the attorneys and said that she could potentially have information that could help the case. Doesn't sound like a big deal to me. She's extremely qualified in this. She's all done with her testimony. Right before the lunch break, we get into lunch, and then there's a new digital forensics expert that comes on the stand. His name is Richard Green. Richard Green is hired by the defense. He is going to testify about the Apple Health data for John O'Keefe, also about the Celebrate extraction with Jen McCabe's How Long to Die in the Cold search. Just to let you know, I'm not going to talk about that anymore because it is over enough done. It's so confusing to me that I can't make any sense of it. Even after hearing this witness, I was still so confused. He states that the Apple Health data from John O'Keefe on January 29th shows that he traveled 87 meters and took 80 steps between 12:21 and 12:24 a.m. It also shows the flights of stairs between 12:22 and 12:24 a.m. Green is testifying that the Waze app is actually off by 3 minutes. So when John O'Keefe was saying he was half a mile away, he was actually in fact arriving at the house, and that's when he was ascending or descending the stairs. So there's no other place he could have done that besides inside the home. We know that Karen Reed, also in the same car ride, never ascended or descended steps driving on hills. The last steps recorded by John O'Keefe are at 12:32 and 16 seconds. It was 36 steps, so that's really interesting. Adam Lally wants to challenge this Apple Health data and also the How Long to Die in the Cold search. He doesn't believe that the 2:27 search could be valid, but Richard Green is standing firm that it was made at 2:27. Around 3:15 today, the jury was excused and we will have a full day of court on Monday. The jury is supposed to get the case next week.